Have you ever tossed a coin? And have you ever tossed a coin to find out that there are no two sides to the coin? The coin you just tossed has only one side. In today's video, I am going to tell you that intention and action are two sides of the same coin, and if one of them is missing, it's like that coin which has no other side. Hey folks, I'm CSK and you're watching me on my channel CSKSpeaks. As an educator, my job is to bring you perspectives. My role is to bring you those ideas in life which can help you to become better, a better version of yourselves. So today, I have this particular statement to discuss with you, and that is intention and action are two sides of the same coin. As I said in the introduction, can you imagine a coin without one side? Well, the coin does not mean its primary purpose without a side. So is the case, because there are many examples which you and I can think of where we try to do something good, the intent is there, but our actions end up creating problems. So much so that those problems take decades to be repaired. The easiest example is something you said out of the impulse, an instinctive reaction can stay in the human mind for a long time, and no amount of regret or sorry will actually make that even. Why about that? Think of this particular historic story for which one lady had to suffer for a generation. And that's the story which will actually tell you to remember that intention and action are two sides of the same coin. So this story is from the famous Damodar Valley project. Panchet Dam in the erstwhile Bihar and now Jharkhand, and it's built with the combination or with the cooperation of the central government and the two states of West Bengal and Bihar and now Jharkhand. And this was the year 1959. Now, what you need to know about this particular story is one man and his ability to convince the Prime Minister of India then, the first Prime Minister. This was Mr. Parthasarathi, a reputable civil engineer. In fact, he was so famous, so popular, and he was also a kind of a freedom fighter in his own right that he had rubbed shoulders with the who's who of the pre-independent era, from Subhash Chandra Bose to Jawaharlal Nehru to many other people. He had that kind of accolade of working together hand in hand with Sir M. Visvesvaraya, another great engineer of our times. So Parthasarathi was entrusted with the responsibility of overseeing the construction of the Damodar Valley project. Now, when everything was about to get completed, Mr. Parthasarathi writes a letter to the then Prime Minister Pandit Nehru. Pandit Nehru was reading the letter, and in that letter, after the first two paragraphs of pleasantries and invitation to invite him to come and inaugurate the Damodar Valley project, the last paragraph was a stern warning to the Prime Minister by Mr. Parthasarathi, the chief engineer of the Damodar Valley project. What is the warning about? He very respectfully said that, Panditji, you are known to be late on public occasions. So I request you to be there on time for the inauguration of the Damodar Valley project, failing which I will be forced to inaugurate at the appointed time through the hands of an alternative person. Now Panditji read this, and look at the humility of Panditji, the Prime Minister. He called Mr. Parthasarathi and said, "Don't you worry. I appreciate your concern and I'll be there 30 minutes in advance. I'll be there half an hour early. And as he committed, Pandit Nehru reached the spot half an hour early. So rest was history. Everybody was fine. Panditji is there, Prime Minister is on time, and the function can go on flawlessly. So as Panditji went on the stage and he was about to press the button to inaugurate, he remembered those few lines in the letter of invitation. So he stopped himself and turned to Mr. Parthasarathy and said, Sarathi, tell me, you had written to me that if I come late, you will go ahead and get it inaugurated by some other alternative person. So who do you have in mind? Parthasarathy very humbly said, well, that's not relevant now. The most important thing is you are here on time and we are going ahead with the program as per schedule. But Panditji insisted. He said, no, I'm curious. Indulge me here and tell me who is that alternative person. So Parthasarathy very shyly said that, well, there is this lady from the Budni tribe, Budni Mejan. She was the first woman who joined the project right from the construction. In fact, she was the one to keep the first brick for this particular dam. So in my view, if there is any other alternative person who fits the bill to inaugurate this project, it is she. Panditji was mighty pleased. He said, well, that's a wonderful thought. Is she around? Is she around? Mr. Parthasarathy said, yes, of course, she is here. We had kept her as a backup. Can I see her? And then they send a word to her and she is brought to the center stage. Panditji said, well, let's together launch this project. And thereby, Panditji had the intention of sending out a message of women empowerment loud and clear, respecting the labor loud and clear. So these intentions are noble, right? 1959 we are talking about, where people were talking of women empowerment, getting the women to inaugurate a national project like Damodar Valley project, then getting the person who laid the first stone as a foundation for the big project, the labor being rewarded in its true sense by getting them to inaugurate. These days we see our Prime Minister going and sitting with the Paura Karmikas and the laborers in the center and taking photograph at Ayodhya for all the renovation. So these are messages which they want to give to the public, to the nation, to the world, that everyone is equal and everybody has to be respected and all that, right? The intentions are so noble. And so both of them together pressed, and you can see in the photograph, both of them, that is the Prime Minister and Budli Mejan, inaugurating the project. In the background, you'll see Mr. Parthasarathy, of course. Now, everything went well. And as we all know, that Panditji loved roses. So there was a huge garland of roses which was brought for Nehruji. And Parthasarathy took the garland and offered it to Nehruji. Nehruji, out of his own excitement and happiness and concern to the people on stage, he took it out and he said, no, this is actually supposed to go to her because she is the true representative of all the people who helped construct this project. Because he remembered the flood which was caused by that river, and now this project is going to give livelihood to many people. So he immediately, as a matter of fact, he removed his garland and he put it on that tribal girl, all of 16. A 16-year-old tribal girl was garlanded by the Prime Minister. Everybody went gaga over it. All of them were happy. He was so down to earth, he was so humble, and then all of them enjoyed that day, the inauguration of the grand national project, Damodar Valley project. But the next morning, the newspapers had some other version, some other narrative to communicate to the world. And that was, the headlines shook the country, shook the nation actually, because that tribal girl, 16-year-old, was declared as Nehru's tribal wife. Why? Because the Budni tribe believes that when some girl in their tribe is garlanded, that very act of garlanding the girl is defined as marriage. And because of that, no other man, even though if she is married to some other person, that person has to ostracize her from the tribe. The whole tribe will throw her out of their community, and this girl is deemed to be married to that person who has put the garland on her. Now this is where it stood. And it's ridiculous to go back to the Prime Minister and say, well, you have put the garland, so you got to marry her. Then Mr. Parthsarathy took care of her in terms of getting her a house, a job, and then the rest is history. If you go back to the Wikipedia, it even says that Rajiv Gandhi, who came as the Prime Minister after Mr. Nehru, gave her the job back in Damodar Valley project because she was thrown out and she was ostracized and all that. Now, that is not a story which I want to venture into. I want to stop there and come back to the conflict between intent and action. Intention and action. What was Nehruji's intention? His intention was to send a message of women empowerment. His intention was so noble, but the action actually did the opposite. Through this story, I am here to tell you that no matter how noble your intention is, your actions have to reciprocate, has to correspond with that intention. So friends, we all have the power to step back and think the far-reaching repercussions of this particular thing. Right? So we need to focus on that one thing, that anytime you take any action, intention is there, it is known to you, it is very clear to you, but your action should also reflect that intention and be aware. Be aware of its consequences. As Newton rightly said in his third law, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. No matter whatever your action is, it should definitely not give rise to opposite reactions. Then your intention will get diluted, dissolved. So keep this piece of history with you, a story, but then keep the message with you loud and clear that intention and action are two sides of the same coin. Thank you very much for watching CSK Speaks.